Hi, everybody, and welcome to our complimentary webinar, which is brought to you today in partnership with NICE, Auscontact's national gold sponsor. Our session today is entitled Doing More with Less, which I know we're all really focused on. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, waters, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people joining us here today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes, and during that time, with the help of today's very special guest, Nadia Younan, one of the top 100 influencers in APAC, I might add, we hope to spark your interest and engage you in conversation, as well as provide you with some ideas within your control to take back to your respective businesses. To round off the session, we'll have a Q&A at the end. We can ask any of those questions that have been burning away. I'm Fran Southwood, CEO of Auscontact, and I will be your moderator today. While we're waiting for people to join us, we'll just quickly run through housekeeping with you. Remember to interact with us today to maximise what you take away from the session, but equally to make sure it addresses any of those questions that you do have. Use the QA feature in the chat button in the menu. If you're anything like me, I will think of a great question, and if I don't write it down, I will forget it. So write it down as we go. And if it's about the stuff Nadia is actually covering there and then, I'll step in and we'll ask that question and get it resolved when it's talking contextually. If it's something that's totally unrelated and more general in nature, we'll keep that for the end. But again, interaction makes it best for you. If you have any issues with your tech or anything like that, use the raise hand feature and one of the team will jump in. Otherwise, you can revert to the email registration and it will have some phone numbers you can dial in with. As always, NICE always gives us a Fabo prize. So we will have a $200 MasterCard gift card for the best question asked of the day, as voted by Nadia. You need to stay to the end to actually be eligible for that. And Nadia will judge it offline. So then when we actually send out the recording and any of the slides that Nadia wants to share, we'll also include there who the winner was for that prize. So I'm going to stop chatting and I'm going to hand you over and introduce our speaker for today. As I said, Nadia Younan, WFO Solutions Manager, APAC at NICE, which is quite a mouthful, but probably what we love to say is Nadia is an absolute expert when it comes to WFO, and we can't wait to hear more from you today. So thank you, Nadia.
Thank you so much, Fran, and a big thanks to the Auscontact team for promoting events like this and your real advocacy for our industry. I'm always happy when I get to do an Auscontact presentation because it gives me time to stop doing and just sit and think. And this is actually an interesting presentation for myself to pull together. Those who have known me and have been on any of my presentations before or we've interacted before, you know I'm a workforce management person through and through. But today's presentation is a bit broader than that. And we're talking about doing more with less and how to optimize the contact center performance when times are tough. Right, money costs more than ever before. We can't keep paying people just massive salaries to stay, but we still need to keep pace with competition. We need to deliver excellent customer outcomes, and we need to, thrill and excite and retain customers as well as our very, very important staff. This is quite a broad pitch for me and presentation today, but bear with me and we'll have a look at some different levers you can pull and ideas for doing more with less. So first of all, I put up a bit of a depressing slide, isn't it, really? This is a Gallup poll on the state of the workplace. It is from North America, but, often these trends sort of still filter down to us. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a bit of a sad story, right? We got a lot of people who say they're feeling burnt out. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're overoccupied, they're stressed, or they're just bored, which neither of these things are great things for us. 33% state they don't trust their employees. and 75% say they would probably quit as a relation to direct managers. So we have a workforce out there that if they could probably leave, they would. And this is a big problem statement for us in workforce management. So some of these levers around doing more with less really can tie back into how can we address this problem statement. So that's why I've put it up the front. I think we're all feeling a little bit burnt out and exhausted, particularly around this time of year. So let's look at some ways that some of these initiatives can help you to optimize the contact center, but also help these folks out who are feeling either burnt out or bored. So I've pulled together some do more with less levers. Yeah. And you may identify certain ones that are meaningful to you, some you love, some you might hate, and we're going to talk through them. So the first one that always comes up is, what if we didn't need a person to do the thing? What if the robot did the thing? Yep. And on paper, that should be, boosting first contact resolution. It should boost self-service and containment. And we'll come back to our thoughts on that in a second. But it's a lever. There's probably an app or a robot for that. Now, this is our workforce management bread and butter. What about the labor, the workforce? What are they doing? How long does it take them to do the thing? What if we could reduce the amount of transfers that happened in an interaction? So instead of me saying, I'm stuck on this process, I'm going to send it to fraud or to claims or to wherever or to tier 2, I can do more myself. What if the amount of time that somebody was putting an interaction on hold was reduced? Think about the number of interactions you have in your organization. And if we took away, 5 seconds of hold time from each of those, what would that account for in dollar value? Probably millions to some of you out there. What if we could stop people from calling us back? Yeah, in boosting that first call resolution and lowering the demand into the contact center. And WFM, of course, reducing over and understaffing. We've got to look at these. Training and onboarding. What if there was a way to reduce the amount of time it takes to build competency, maybe from the 10-week mark to 6 weeks or something lower? How could we do that? What would that look like? How could we maintain quality? Reduce employee churn. Yeah, this is a huge sinkhole of resources out of the organization. It's a serious problem for some customers out there. We'll look at ways to reduce employee churn. And an interesting one. This one goes against the trend of everybody get back to work, which you would have seen. Tabcorp sending everybody back to work. A lot of the banks have sent everybody back to work. But it is a cost. Yep. And so how do we optimize real estate while maintaining employee satisfaction? Because the mandate is now to shift everybody back. So let's talk about the robots and the AI part of things first. Now, I'm going to suggest a lot of different ways to address some of these and different tips and different tricks. I'm not suggesting everybody go out and buy a whole bunch necessarily of technology. Throughout this presentation, you're going to get a sense that there's levers that could be pulled that might possibly cause an issue somewhere else, or there's silos throughout here where we have a team of people who went to Contact Center Week and they learned all about AI and containment and all this stuff, and they bought all this tech and never spoke to us in workforce management because the organization is siloed. So it's really a holistic approach we have to get to. And coming up with a strategy about which levers are going to be pulled when, what are the downstream impacts to everybody else, and are we all on this journey together? And I know it's very easy for me to sit here and say that, but that's kind of where we need to get to. So real-time agent assist is something that we provide at NICE, and lots of other people do it too, so I'm not here to talk too much about what NICE does. But this is a technology to really help employees while they're on the interaction to be able to provide the right information with the right context to that customer at that particular time. So if you think about the first lever we had, talking about containment and improving first contact resolution, if you think about the employee experience while they're actually on that interaction, instead of going, I'm going to ask the person next to me, I'm going to put myself on hold. That was already one of the levers. Oh, I'm sorry, customer, I don't know how to resolve that for you. Let me research it and get back to you. That's the first call resolution. Or they're spending an extended time on the interaction, searching knowledge bases and searching for help. So if they had like that co-pilot or real-time assistant while they're on the interaction, these are some of the outcomes that we can expect. So the results that you're seeing on the screen are from other customers that have used our technology. Again, I'm not here to sell technology today. This is offered by different people, but this might be one of your first levers that you look to pull. What support can I give to the employee while they're on the call? And that's something that could look and feel, could be different technology solutions for you, but this is kind of where the market is heading, to stop all that on interaction, follow up, ask a friend, put them on hold, calling them back. So if you think about 27% higher first call resolution, almost a third more interactions are going to be resolved at that point in time. If we put our WFM hat on, reduce repeat calls, that's a significant shift in demand. So that's something that's out there. That's a lever that people are pulling. And also we have things like conversational AI. So helping the interaction or the customer being able to, use self-service channels in a way that's still going to produce great customer outcomes. We don't want to be rolling out AI and self-service to hear feedback that actually it's just very difficult to navigate or it's very painful and doesn't actually serve the purpose that it was intended for. I think we've all had interactions with different platforms where we didn't love them. These have come along in leaps and bounds, but again, can be another lever to help reduce that time to handle the interaction, time to resolution, as well as promoting a great NPS. So we want to get people into these flows where they're contained and resolved within that particular flow. And the results that you're seeing on the screen are from some of our particular customers that we've surveyed. And again, if we did the math, these would be some really, really big wins. One of the barriers that we see when it comes to implementing something like this is the data. Yep. So how, if you think, I guess I speak quite simplistic sometimes, but if the robot is supposed to help me with advice, because that advice is going to lead to a great first call resolution, where does it get that information from? How does it access what is the right data to help Nadia solve Fran's fraud claim? Yep. So we need to have a situation where we have the ability to leverage all the different data points in your organization so it can actually provide good advice. I don't want a robot providing me with rubbish advice. It needs to be able to provide holistic, targeted, and correct information. And you can see on the right-hand side all the different places it could be scraping that data from, and all the different ways that we could then surface that up to help on that continuous improvement process, right? So we were talking to a particular organization recently. You would know who they are. They're very blue chip, very famous, and they had a slide, and it had, here's all the technology we have today. And you would be hard pressed to find a logo that wasn't on that slide. It had everybody's name under the sun on there, and it was the messiest looking thing you've ever seen in your life. Now, doing more with less, it's an interesting topic, right? Because there are certain foundational criteria or certain foundational structures that need to be in place to better enable this for you. If you think about data, sentiment analysis, did Nadia use the right soft skills on a call? Did she use empathy? How do we gather that information and use it usefully? Then we need to access all of this kind of data. And so this is something to think about. And it's an interesting challenge, right? Because again, back to that picture on the right-hand side, all of those products would have different owners. And all of them, here's the CRM people, the customer journey people, here's the customer quality success team over there, here's the WFM team over there. If we're talking about doing more with less, I really encourage you to think about your little world. And for us, again, it's a WFM world, but then think about the organization. How do we pull people into these initiatives and bring them on the journey with us? Hey, AI people, I want to create a new WFM model that considers 63% containment and a 27% increase in first call resolution. So let's have a conversation about that. Let's join, break down the silos and have a conversation about how that technology might impact the call takers that I'm scheduling for. Maybe I need a different shift pattern. Maybe they need different breaks. Maybe we need to do something else. But you'll find this exists in very small silos, and that needs to be broken down if we're really going to start triaging out how do we do more with less, not in our own world, but across the organization. I'm putting up some really big statements that I don't have quick answers to, but something to think about.
I was just going to say with that, I think the other part of, really breaking down those silos and having those conversations that cross those, traditional kind of grey walls, there's got to be a strategy about where they're heading. There's got to be this organizational construct that says, the light on the hill looks a particular way, and we're going to really focus on what's our customer strategy, what's our interaction. So that real architecture. So I think that, in the past, it hasn't been as important. I mean, to me, I think it's necessary, but I think it's been, people have gotten away without necessarily having it really combined and linked. And I think, the technology you're talking about, this opportunity that we're talking about, actually means it's more important than ever to really have an organizational position.
It absolutely is. It really is. And I think that's just missing in a lot of places. And it's something that we all need to come on the journey together with. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. You've articulated it very well. Just showing up just some other statistics around conversational insight, using that data to be able to produce some really serious outcomes, including, higher degrees of accuracy and operational efficiency as evidenced by our own customers. So the AI technology is there to help the customer from the first interaction, to help the employee while they're on the interaction, providing them with contextual insight and real-time guidance can lead to some real operational benefits. Then we talk about the employee themselves doing more with less, right? So poor performance, these are some statistics from Aberdeen. And again, we can send this pack over, but we all know this. I have days where I'm completely burnt out, and sometimes it happens to me Friday afternoon, and then by Sunday I'm reflecting on that last call I had Friday, and inevitably I wish I had done it differently. I might have said something short or not been the brightest version of myself. We know that, right? We know this inherently. When people are happy, they are going to deliver better service. And happiness and employee engagement is something that's dear to me and often a really low-hanging fruit. So again, another recap on what we're seeing out there in the industry. More so focused on performance in this point in time. We know we have a high amount of people who are unengaged, but bottom right, 29% only are happy with their career development and their future. Okay, so doing more with less. Seriously, let's think about that. WFM folks, I speak to them and I say, how many of you ever have like a WFM career path, WFM performance management path? What about having a WFM open day and inviting people in and showing them what you do? What would that cost us? Not very much, nothing. Mentoring people with somebody else. These are the sorts of levers and gauges that you can pull and drive up. People need to think that they're part of something, that they're contributing to a strategy, that they're involved. And we all find that when people feel like that, they're more likely to show up, they're more likely to care about what they're doing, and they're more likely to really give their all while they're there on that shift. So something like using performance as part of a career management. Don't forget, it's not just the employees to performance manage, but our own admin teams. How do we keep those very precious people engaged?
I think the other part of that, Nadia, is, creating that opportunity where purpose is really visible. As humans, we love knowing our purpose and connecting with it. I think as leaders, there's this real challenge in actually understanding the currency of each person within your team, because we all know those people that actually desperately love turning up at 9 and finishing at 5. They leave their work behind, and it fits with what's going on in their lives at that exact time,
Absolutely.
right? And
Yes.
they're so important. And then there's the other people that we need to understand that are actually looking for something more. They want to learn here, move to the next, learn there, move to the next. So you're right. It's about that tailored approach to creating this engaged development kind of opportunity, and creating the environment where people can thrive, and choose to opt in, right? So, all of this data, to me, not surprised, right? 85% disengaged, crazy numbers.
Yeah,
Imagine if you could shift that by even just 10% each year. Like, that's
absolutely.
nutso, right? And under 30% happy with what their career pathway looks like. And, I'm all for your career, right? It's not on an organization or leaders to actually hand it to somebody, but it is on you to create the environment where it can happen. So again, this stuff, most of it, it's actually all in your control as leaders to actually understand your people and think about what are those different things that you can try and fail fast with, and knowing your people. You talk about recognition. You will all know the people in your team that if you called them out and said something in front of everybody, they would shrivel up and die and not want to come into work the next day, versus the people that will love that. So it is about nuancing your approach to every single component here. And what that does is make people feel valued because they feel like your approach is tailored and
Absolutely.
somewhat personal, right? So anyway, there's a really interesting comment here. I'm just going to call it out,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
go.
talking about how they love, the fact that you're talking about moving away from that silo approach and the challenges with that. But the question, how do you do it efficiently? Which is, let me tell you, the golden question, right? Um, and they're talking about at their centre, they've tried to uptake this approach, but it's resulted in spending so much time trying to keep all areas on the same page and aligned on the same topic that it actually takes you away from the real work. So there is this balance, right? This push-pull that says we need to have something we're aiming for, but I've been in those situations where everybody wants to be at the meeting, and if you haven't got everyone there, you've got that whole.
Yeah.
It's almost a full-time job.
I think you're right. And I see a lot of it. So I see a lot of like corporate vision statements and, you respond to a tender and this is our vision and all of that. So there's a lot of words, but I think where the rubber really hits the road effectively, there has to be a high level executive sponsor of the initiative that can wrangle the people into line and say, we're doing this. I
Yeah.
think when it starts to come from the bottom up, it just gets that tanglement of, oh, WFM people are trying to do this, or quality people are trying to do that. We need somebody at the top to not mandate, but really say, this is a corporate priority. This is what we're going to do. And then these are the people who are going to be part of that. And then when you kind of have it coming down from the top, we all kind of have to fall in and make it work in some way. I think when it comes the other way, it does get a bit lost. Now, having said that, there are things within our own worlds that we can control. And so you really want to work on that. What's in my remit and what's the corporate strategy and how are these two going to align? But when you have that executive sponsorship or champion, that definitely makes it a lot easier.
I think that's really good advice. And certainly having someone that has that, creates that authorizing environment where this is actually the line by which we stand, but actually within that, you've all got a role to play. So how do we,
Yeah.
keep it kind of anchored to an organizational position? But I would say if you don't have that, you will struggle. The next part of this, though, there's another question here from Stacey, and it was talking about the 85% disengagement rate, which we're all probably horrified by. How can we effectively implement a day in the life program or such fosters cross-collaboration in an environment where 85% of employees are disengaged, while minimising the risk of breeding negative sentiment? Any tips? And, you know, again, I would say it's a bit like the elephant, right? You've just got to take a bite, because you're not going to turn 85% straight away, right? You're going to slowly build some edges. Yeah.
It's a big old number just sitting there that I don't necessarily have the context behind. But I think to that question, you'd have to find out why, and then we can do something about it. But I've got some more tips on employee engagement that we're going to come to. So I'll circle back.
Might wrap them into it. Yeah,
I'll circle back to that one and just push on. I might just move past the next couple of slides a bit quickly, just showing some of the feedback that we've had from customers around, you know, helping people to feel like they're part of the organization, that they're growing, that they're performing well. Again, there's a myriad of different performance management tools out there. Doing more with less for you, this could mean anything. It could mean, I don't know, a whiteboard with who's our leader. It could mean a daily call out. Hey, Jess, you're the best performer for today. Congratulations, you get to go home 45 minutes early. Again, I'm here with my tech shirt on, but it doesn't have to be this tech heavy. It's a matter of recognizing and rewarding. And that's really all this fancy slide is saying.
But sometimes people just like a thank you, right? They don't need much to puff their chest out.
Correct.
They want you to, they want to know you're looking.
Correct, absolutely. And I get a lot of, because I get to hear, fortunately, I get to hear when things go wrong a lot in my job. That's when I get pulled in. And occasionally I will get, oh my gosh, that was a really good whatever. And it just brightens up your whole afternoon. So it doesn't have to be, it is exactly that. It's the voice, it's the message, it's the I heard, I hear you, I saw you. Same goes for things like coaching. All this slide is saying, and Fran really hit the nail on the head with that personalized coaching. All I'm saying on this slide is there's ways to elevate coaching using things like that AI-based sentiment analysis and things like that, having the coaching elevated to a point where you're only coaching on the interactions that need coaching. So there is technology out there, so you don't have to cherry pick and manually listen and manually find. It can be, you can use AI throughout that if it's available to you, to make the time you spend on coaching more effective. That's all this is saying.
We're seeing and hearing some good things within the environment where people are using sort of that 100% QA solution to really, and again, not for a second thinking you're then going to get underneath every one of those calls, but it can actually identify some really targeted, specific components of interactions that you can then actually make really cool training about. And again, as you say, personalized coaching, which actually means it's about them, not about just some generic concepts that you think you're seeing in some sort of trend data analysis.
Absolutely. And the time to coach now is reduced, okay, because it's surfacing up insights that are meaningful rather than just you trawling through a tranche of interactions. So that's something else that's out there and is available today. And that's the trend that we're seeing in coaching. We want that AI layer over the top to stop all the manual effort that goes into coaching and into being, you know, just coaching by rote rather than a personalized session that considers not just did you say the right things, but did you listen effectively? Did you provide empathy and all the soft selling things that is important to customers as well? Make it a game. Make it a game. Okay. People like playing and I like winning games. Everybody does. And so if you think about wallboards and performance management, it could be that thank you. It could be who got the most thank yous in a period of time. It could be anything. Okay, but do you see this word keep coming out? Personalization. I think it's been on about 3 slides, and Fran's mentioned it as well. We live in a world of the robots, right? And we live in a world where people know that AI could probably do a lot of what we do, right? So the people in the contact center now are more precious to us, and they've always been precious, but they're more so now. So we need to really give them that hyper-personalized touch. And it doesn't mean you need to go out and buy a bunch of expensive tech. It could be just knowing more about them, getting better coaching insights, setting up games and things like that that can enable them to feel better, bring down the 85% disengagement, bring down the boredom factor. Okay. And it could look a multitude of different ways in your organization.
Sometimes there's a real value in utilizing your most disengaged to actually come up with those engagement activities as well. It's amazing what you can do if you can get them to be the ones, and then your first followers quickly jump in.
Correct. And these are just some metrics about performance management improvements that could come from some of those initiatives. You know, and these are some serious dollar values that can exist out there. If you did the math and translated them into dollars, it'd be serious coin. Another lever that you could pull. Okay. Now, this is from a NICE survey, attrition. So now we start to get into a little bit of my home turf about WFM and what role WFM can play. So it's high, it's American. We may not be quite that high, but it's still an issue. We had that job rush after COVID where everyone was getting crazy job offers and salaries and the job ads were through the roof. Then it's kind of settled all the way back down. I think in Australia, I saw in the news the other day that there were more jobs added to the economy than they expected in the last quarter. So we're kind of balancing. But anyway, you want to cut these numbers. We don't want it being 49% or anywhere near there. So let's look at what we can do about this. Now, again, this is just like the nuttiest slide to me, right? It's so nuts. I'll tell you why. Because it's saying we've got all these high attrition rate, we get it. And then 89% of people say, if you just gave me flexible scheduling, I'd be so happy. And all the numbers there are around 70%. This is stuff that WFM has been able to do for about 30 years. Swap a shift, choose my own break, apply for leave. This is not, no one's asking for a crazy amalgam of things that we've never been able to do. So why are so many people saying I'm not getting that? I sat on a fireside chat, right, 2 weeks ago with somebody that is the Asia Pacific Vice President of a very, very large BPO. And on the stage that I nearly recoiled, they described WFM as the police of the contact center. And I went like on stage and had to not react, right? We're not the police. We're there to embrace our employees. We're there to meet business objectives, but this stuff is like no brainer. We should be able to do this. So let's talk about why some folks are challenged with this stuff and how we can improve it. But please don't call yourself the police. Let's be like the fun police or something. Not, oh no, that's fun police is not fun, are they?
That's the
opposite. Just let's not be police.
You want to be the enablers.
Yeah, yes. We want to be the enablers. Thanks, Fran. Not the fun police either. So we can engage people, optimize schedules, manage performance. This is what we're now talking about. See that line at the bottom? When you go away today, take that sentence away and have a think about how you use the voice of the employee in your scheduling practices. Make them active workforce management partners. Think of them as your customers. So whichever organization you're from, and I know we've got some really great names on here. I bet you have fantastic apps and you've got focuses on customer journey and you're taking net promoter scores and all that stuff. I want you to think about that mentality and how you can bring it to your employees as relates to workforce management. Because when they have a buy-in to this, they're going to be a lot more engaged. They're going to turn up for the shifts and all those good things.
I love that line. That is such a good line. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people in organisations in WFM say, oh, you know, they keep asking for shifts and, you know, it takes us we've got a person that's all they do, shift changes all day long. So we're going to stop that. And it's like, actually, why don't you think about the problem here? Yeah. What is it? You know, how can you approach that differently? But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it is. So I'm going to talk about forecasting because the biggest barrier I see to enabling self-service is people don't trust the underlying output of WFM, which is the forecast. Yep. You can't go and promote, go and swap with whoever and let's do split shifts and let's do flexi working and all this stuff if you don't know how many staff you need. So all I'm saying on this slide is you can have AI-based forecasting. It's more adaptive. It can identify trends and all these things. It can reduce time to create a forecast and produce more accurate results than ever before. One of the other barriers, really quickly, is this pretty slide here, where a lot of you are laboring under workforce management solutions or data that pretends everything is a voice interaction when you are not truly voice. So you can't get accurate requirements for your asynchronous work types. And this is the kind of issue, what you're seeing on the screen is what a lot of you are struggling with, where the WFM is stuck thinking that the asynchronous work is being consumed all the way from the person on the left to the person on the right, and it's a 70-minute interaction when it's not. Somebody has parked it and picked it up and started it and stopped it and started it and stopped it. So this is a big issue out there in the market today. I'm happy to talk to anybody after the call if they need extra support on this. But because the summary of this slide is because a lot of the WFM systems and the source systems were invented for voice, they keep sending us data as if they're voice interactions. So we can't get accurate requirements. So we're not feeling confident about going on some of these self-service journeys. So that's a bit of a problem statement. The next is my problem statement, because you're all making my life very difficult. I'll tell you why. This universal employee. Pretty much every WFM tender I get lately, the big ones, I'll tell you what, they go like this. Hi, Nadia, we want to do WFM for our contact center, and we want to use the same WFM solution for my bank branches, and I want to use the same WFM solution for my retail stores. Literally, I'm working on 2 of those at the moment. Why are they doing that? Because they want to do more with less. They do not want point solutions and pockets of resourcing all across their network or their enterprise. They want a holistic vision, and they want to be able to understand, the retail store is a little bit quiet. Maybe they can do some messages and chat. The bank branch is a little bit quiet. Maybe I'm going to overflow calls into there. This is the biggest trend that I'm seeing lately, the universal employee, as evidenced by Gartner and a few others on this particular slide. This is where people are going to. The front and the back office will become a closer mesh than ever they have before, as well as outside the enterprise. So that opens up even new challenges. Back to the old working from home conundrum. We're seeing still more people sit in the hybrid space. We spoke about real estate challenges on one of the levers that we could pull, real estate costs. I'm seeing a bit of a, guys are probably experiencing the same, where there's this opposing, I guess, sentiment, where we have the organizations who want people back in the office and the employees themselves who probably still really don't want to go back there. So being able to have a strategy that accommodates for a hybrid approach might be something that you want to consider. Maybe it could form part of a performance management plan even. So back in the day, I was at American Express, and working from home used to be based on performance KPIs. Firstly, because they were doing it in about 2000 and something, before hardly anyone was working from home. It was to make sure that you didn't need so much supervision. But this could be something that is, doesn't cost you anything really to have, say, somebody, you get to work from home an extra 1 day a week if you're meeting these KPIs or whatever. That's kind of where people are going between hybrid. They want a WFM or a platform that is location agnostic. If you think about that trend of the universal employee and people being shared resources, then we need to be able to support them, motivate them, recognize them wherever they are. Doing more with less in this scenario is about looking at the entire resource pool rather than saying, the bank branch, we need to hire people. actually we could use something in the contact center, or we could use some of the contact center back office over there. That's really a trend that I'm seeing rising, but you can't do that unless you know exactly how many staff are needed right across the enterprise. So you see how some of this knowledge and the lack of it, or the struggle to get at the right data, can hinder these initiatives, because we want to do that, but we don't actually know. And that's where a lot of it gets caught up.
I think, Nadia, the other part of that is, whilst, you know, we can have the slickest operation with the most amazing and accurate forecasting, but you will still have this pesky thing called a customer. And I say that in jest, right? I love customers.
We love new customers.
We love customers. But again, customer doesn't actually see that forecast and think, oh, that's right. They're expecting those calls here. That's where I'm going to do it. Or they're expecting me to walk in the bank at this time. So actually, you need to have a real trust in the forecast. And if you aggregate them out, you'll see, you know, really strong results, right? But in your 15-minute increments or 30-minute increments, you might be up and down. So what you actually need to do is, you know, back in the day, we just called them multi-skilled agents, not necessarily the universal agent. I love that. But you need to have levers and strategies that are real, you know, your typical real time, but you almost need that swing workforce, don't you, that allows you to ebb and flow between it. But it needs to be deliberate. So it needs to be part of overall strategy that, again, people can see themselves in and know that, you know, this week 3 of the month, I'm part of that swing shift, and I'll be the first one on call that actually moves between as customers need us.
Absolutely, Fran. You've hit the nail on the head. And I've just popped up this slide to show a bit of the exchange that needs to happen, I guess, between the front and back. Often they're very, very siloed. They're very, very separate. They have repeat hierarchies, but then the parity of the practices, things like quality, for example, are more evident on the front office than the back. And they're used to being performance managed. Perhaps the back office folks aren't. There might be skills that aren't interchangeable, but that's often very much within our control as an organization, rather than just going out and hiring more people. And this is really a lot of the journey where I'm seeing the industry starting to head. We want to share, we want to bring parity to the front and back so that we can exchange resources more easily. Gosh, I didn't think I would have enough, and now I'm running out of time, as always. Again, back to forecasting just really quickly. You see that orange bucket on the bottom left. We're all really good at that. Everyone's great at the voice. Yeah. How many immediate interactions are we going to have, and how long will they take? Where it gets tricky is the top 2. So all that I'm pointing out here is that each of the work streams need a specific approach. We need to be correct, exactly as Fran says. It needs to be accurate, but people need to understand what you're doing, and they need to understand the numbers. You need to take the forecast out and show it to people to help bring them on that journey to truly blend out the workforce and get that buy-in from the stakeholders. They won't go with you if they don't understand really what you're asking. And that's something you have to now go and sell the WFM message across. And so people can understand the weird maths that we sometimes use and things like that.
The other important thing with that slide, sorry, Nadia, is the balance. If you
absolutely.
if you leave your deferrable work, if you leave your async interactions, if you leave it too long, guess what it does? Increases real time, so you can't actually get back to the deferred work.
Yeah.
So the balance is so key, and it's what WFM experts constantly look for and see. But, you know, again, we all know one slip up actually means you never get back to it. So, you know, this dance of balance is so key.
It absolutely is. And that brings me to my next slide. I'm not here to talk too much about NICE today, but I just bring this up because this is the future of WFM. Now, cognitive load on the person. Yeah. What are we going, and this is what we're working on in our lab. This is where we're going with it. So not only remember all our life, it has been the right number of people to handle the interactions in service level. Look at the words on this slide. This is a completely different thing for us in WFM. Panic, burnout, exhaustion, better results. Yeah. So now we're going to be building an engine that brings in some of these elements and helps you produce plans that consider all of these soft things, whereas before in WFM, we've been very binary, bits and bytes and FTEs and part of people. Now we're thinking more about the mental health even of the employee. That's just where we're going and where you can expect WFM to go. Just quickly to round out, and we're almost done. A lot of the function in WFM, and even my first job as a WFM person was what used to be called a queue pilot. So I would sit and I would watch queues all day long, and I'd say, hey, so-and-so's been on AHT for a long time. Do they need help? Someone's been in, after call work for ages. I'll go see what they're doing. Only to say here that there's now different technologies and ways that you can put an automation layer over the WFM. And it gives that really high degree of self-service to the employee, making them partners. Serve yourself. Let's us focus more on the forecast and the overarching strategy of sharing employees, for example, and less time touching the schedules. Well, that serves the employee because they want to self-service anyway. I don't need to go and tap people on the shoulder because there's a robot for that. I can send proactive alarms and things like that. So just have a look at some of that practice around real-time and schedule management and have a think about why you're not using. I know all the WFMs have functions like this. Things like shift trades. Remember back to that slide why people were feeling dissatisfied. They were basic stuff. I want to tell you where my lunch break is. I want to swap a shift with my friends. I want to tell you my preferences. They've all been able to do that for a very long time. So I encourage you to go back and have a look at those flows and see if there's something that your organization has tried and it worked or it didn't. Why didn't it work? Sometimes I find so-and-so didn't like it as a key manager. Well, so-and-so's resigned now. Maybe we should revisit it, go back and have a look, because this is going to pay serious dividends. And a lot of the stuff I spoke about at the start may be out of your control, but for my WFM people on the call, this is now in your immediate control. How can I outsource some of the WFM function to the employees who are going to love it anyway, because they want to self-serve, because everybody does in this day and age. Just to quickly conclude on a case study, I'll send this across. We've got a bunch of these. I'm not going to read it all out, but if you look at the blue quote, now we have people on split shifts at all kinds of weird and wonderful shifts, right? And sure, this is talking about nice tech, but you could do some of this yourself and get a similar feedback, I'm sure. Because they've probably refined their forecasts, they run test schedules, they did what-if analysis and took the voice of the employee into the WFM process and, gave people what they want where they could. And it's delivered lots of operational insights and benefits for them. So that's the conclusion of my talk today. I think if I can just go out and back in and pop the very first slide back onto the top, and we can see if there's any questions and people who want to win a prize. But
yeah, we've got a few. We've got a few questions.
All right. Well, I'll leave that on, and then let's ask the questions. And this may jog your memory.
Leave that up there.
Yeah.
Look, I think there's a couple of comments here, and Stacey put some stuff in there around the Day in the Life program and that disengagement that we touched on. But then in that same vein, we had a question in relation to, they've called it the Goldilocks zone for optimal productivity. But I think the slide you had there about the work you guys are now doing around that, I think it was moderate stress within that bell curve. Yeah. That was the optimal performance layer. And it's interesting, if you think about environment, we have always focused on how do we reduce stress, but there is a sweet spot, because if you reduce it too much, people are bored. They're bored off their brain. So again, you've got to have that variety and positional component in there. So their question was, where employers are neither overworked nor disengaged in that Goldilocks zone, how do you identify it? And you guys are doing some exploring and discovery on that now, and really focused on building that new model that really, because again, if you think about the sentiment analysis, it can be used the reverse way. You can actually use that sentiment analysis to understand where your staff are getting heightened, where they're, if you build something like that into the model, that's like cool stuff that's coming our way, right?
Yeah, and look, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
No,
if you think, I've been in a contact center where they brought a chat platform, And they went, this is hooray, we're going to open up chat and we're not going to need as many people on the phone because now everyone's going to chat with us. Well, guess what? It just opened up a new way for an extra 10,000 customers to contact us who wouldn't have been, because they didn't want to use the phone, right? They had to shut it back down. So there needs to be that linkage between, you know, what are we going to automate or try and contain or deflect, and what would that look like to WFM? So you folks have an opportunity to go and model that. What would that look like with a, you know, 85% occupancy or 95 or whatever? What will that model look like? There needs to be that very much linkage between the rest of the organization. And the more you can prove value in that space, the more people will start to go, actually, has anyone run this by operations and workforce management? Have we checked that? What's it going to do? What's it going to look like? And they're going to come to you. But that's a journey, because if they think that we're just sitting, modifying breaks and moving shifts around, they don't understand that you have the power to model that scenario. You have the power to tell them how many staff they need, what the expected rate of service will be, and provide them with options. So that can be a real way to elevate WFM, but it can be a journey.
Yeah. Chris has just put here, again, in that thing around balancing stress levels, you know, calling out that it's always hard to balance that stress level and the time pressure of output, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's just disappeared on my screen. Sorry. So to help the workers be happier, healthier agents, and also to provide better customer service, how could we provide better supports to achieve this? You know, again, I think you covered off agent assist. Certainly, we've seen some great results where the confidence that actually is giving agents speed to competency and things like that. It feels like there's a safety guard almost around them, and often, you know, the frustration that they were seeing in customers is reduced as well. So it's actually, they're seeing some tangible results in some of the stress levels because of the technology supporting them to be better, which actually has a direct flow on to customer and customer sentiment. Are there other things you're seeing that are actually kind of supporting that stress level, or it's, you know, kind of still a discovery piece that's kind of emerging?
Look, I would really have a look at what things that you can do to help reduce stress and then keep them as a priority. So what I mean by that is things like, this is a typical scenario in WFM. Oh my gosh, we're really busy today, so cancel all the team meetings, cancel all the one-on-ones. No. Those things have to be there. That is like, it's not negotiable, and they have to happen. The amount of stress relief that people get from small things like that, being with their team, having a team lunch, maybe you're going to look at slight things like a team-ish based rostering to keep people together where you can. When you start putting on things like that and cancelling them, oh, we're too busy, the message is terrible.
Well,
and people
they're
feel
more important than ever, right?
Yeah, they really are. And I think it's a diminishing return when of course, if it's an outage or something bad, of course, but when you're doing that as a matter of course, it really does weigh on people's minds. And so where you have those little breaks for people, protect them at all costs, encourage people to take breaks. Don't allow people to just come in early and stay late for no real reason, right? It's either a proper overtime or it's not. You do have those workers who just want to keep giving, and they're the ones who just end up burning out. So we really need to be protective of those areas that are for the employee, that are for their well-being, and not just cancel them because we're a little bit busy today.
I think your message, though, throughout this really around the role of WFM as a partner, right? A true
absolutely.
workforce management partner with frontline staff and leaders.
Yeah.
You know, again, I always say in contact centres, we all naturally are people pleasers. We want to help. We want to help our organisation do well. We want to help our customers. Like, everything we do is focused on resolving things and doing it well, right? It's just our DNA.
Yeah.
And sometimes it masks the actual circumstances within the environment. So,
absolutely, yeah.
you know, we kill our people, we push them hard, we increase that stress, we stop the things they enjoy, and we go, gosh, I wonder why they're all leaving. So there is, and again, for the right intention, but actually it shows senior leadership that actually you can do it, that it's fine, but it's not sustainable. So
No,
there
it's
is this
not.
real balance that we've got to actually take back. That's about showing that it doesn't come at the cost of our people, that actually great service costs. So we're going to look at how do we do more with less, and all of the things you've talked about are really, really great. But we've just got to balance that people component. There's a question here, Nadia, about
Yep.
how you measure service time on email management. I'm assuming for this, it says agents are also servicing on emails and calls at the same time. So there's that, and probably throw in processing, throw in async, throw in all of that,
Absolutely. So you've just nailed my life at the moment. So WFM needs to be able to create models that account
Yeah.
for the auto park of work. It has to understand that work is simultaneous and that work is also concurrent. We have that with our WFM product, but it's not necessarily about our product today, but they're the questions that you need to go and ask. The other challenge is a lot of the source systems, WFM doesn't propagate data about interactions, it receives it, right? Now, the other problem is a lot of the source systems out there, they weren't built to care about WFM, they're built to serve a chat or a message. So we need to be able to get data from those systems that is usable in WFM, and that's a journey that I'm with a lot of customers on at the moment. But if your WFM thinks that everything is a voice interaction and it's first in, first out, then you're going to be very much limited to be able to invoke some of these strategies, because exactly as you said, I can't get an accurate grip on requirements because it doesn't understand that work is happening at the same, in essence, happening at the same time, that we can go in and out of focus on certain work items, that work items can be auto parked. We do that, but you need to go and check what functionality you have available, because it's not even a nice to have anymore, it's mandatory. It's
a
critical.
must have. Yep.
Yeah.
We've got a question here. Given the variety of applications used in contact center, all the separate tools, all of the, throw in some legacy systems, we're all there.
Yeah.
QA, CRM, WFM, etc. Would you advise
Exactly.
looking into a single integrated solution that consolidates all of these functionalities into one ecosystem to improve efficiency? I mean, at the end of the day, I've seen some organizations do it well where they've got one. I've seen others do it well where they've got many. But again, it comes back to what is their deliberate strategy to actually be smart with all of that.
Look, I agree with you, Fran. I have seen people who have every shiny tool under the sun and they're still struggling, and other people who are quite effective with not such a sophisticated stack. But if you think about from the WFM lens, one big fat pipe of data from all these sources coming to WFM is just makes our life so much easier. The other challenge that I have is if you look at these, if you change those graphics on the right-hand side and made them chat and messaging and email or something like that, people have an expectation of the integration from voice. So I go, oh, here's my messaging system. Where's the real-time integration to that thing? Well, it was never built for WFM. It doesn't even have that capability. So if you can, definitely one platform is, I think, the way of the future. And I'm seeing this tic-tac between people where they have a WFM, then they want to add on, or they've got the contact center and then they want to bring it up to one platform. And that's kind of where people are going as well, because it does help immediately break down a lot of these silos. And it does help you to become more effective to serve right across the enterprise, whether it's front office and back office, if they're all working through that platform, that unlocks a whole lot of potential for us.
Yeah, no, it's really good advice. And I think, I would probably say the other thing that, all of this stuff is, such good advice for people to really think about. And again, there's loads of stuff in control. I would also challenge people to remember that the contact center doesn't generate the calls. 95% of the calls are not generated by a contact center. So actually creating that organizational buy-in, having the influence, you've actually got to position yourself and again, take back some of that control, because to reduce the calls, actually it's someone else's responsibility that you can actually give the intel and the rest of it to help support them to make different decisions because of the flow-on effect into your environment. You think marketing, you think campaigns, you think compliance, you think, audit and regulatory. The the calls that are generating from the different things happening within the environment, frontline services, service delivery spaces are actually managing them on behalf of the whole organisation. So building the reputation, doing all of those really, really important things, but actually to stop the calls or to stop the interactions or to design better solutions, it's got to be this partnered approach, because you guys are not creating the calls. You're also not creating the digital interactions or the rest of it. You are merely a really important part of it. You don't start them. So those conversations have got to be had and fed into that WFO space.
Absolutely. Well put.
We could talk about this forever.
We could.
And there's a couple of questions there in the Q&A we will give to you to answer as well when we send them on. One specifically about the WEM solution that someone's got, so they want to have a chat.
Yep.
Everybody, thanks for coming along. Honestly, I could talk to Nadia about this stuff forever because I love it. But some great takeaways in there as always. And Nadia, we'll leave it with you and work with you to come up with who had the best question posed at you. So
there were some good ones, and there's some ones I think I haven't seen yet. So let's have a review.
Yeah. We'll have a review. We'll come back to everybody. Thanks, everybody. Great session. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Auscontact. Thanks, Fran.
Thanks, Nadia. See ya.